Hey people, let me be the first to tell you this world has flipped upside down. You understand me? Do you hear me? This place is going crazy, man. I'm not joking. All these earthquakes and asteroids coming and, you know, locusts everywhere and earthquakes, storms, hailstorms. It's bad. And if you went by the Bible, you'd say it's the end times. And I do believe that. I really do. I believe it's very close. There's just too many weird people walking around, you know what I mean? Do you hear me? Gotta be careful, man, I'm telling you. Like I said before, when you go into a public place, know where your exit is, okay? In case you have to get out of there in a hurry. People's flipping out. They really are. And you know, after a while when people get hungry and then they've got to feed their kids and stuff, it's gonna get bad, people. You know, which a lot of people stopped all their buying and stuff, but we do get our check, right? That's a good thing. But anyway, in this episode, I'm going to talk to you about how the Bible has been translated all the way through. There's been so many translations. I think the very first one translated from Latin in 1560, I think. If I got that date right. Anyway, I hope you have a good day today. Anyway, you get to hang out with me for a few minutes, right? Well, at least you got air in your lungs. You can breathe. Take a sigh of relief. It's gonna be alright, people. Alright, let's jump into the video, okay?
England's newly minted King longed to set into motion the wheels of a new English translation of the Bible. In 1604, only a few months after his coronation, James called together a conference at Hampton Court Palace to hear the concerns of religious leaders about things pretended to be amiss in the church. It was from this assembly of clergymen and scholars that a call came, somewhat unexpectedly, for a new translation of the Bible, which was answerable to the truth of the original manuscripts of Scripture. When James heard their request, his response was eager, swift, and decisive. Over the previous 75 years, no fewer than 50 different English versions of all or parts of the Bible had been published. The Great Bible, the Geneva Bible, the Bishop's Bible, to name a few. But none had satisfied either James or the leaders of the Church of England, much less captured the devotion and support of the common worshiper. King James convened a committee of the realm's finest translation specialists and charged them to produce a scholarly improvement of the widely used Bishop's Bible of 1568. But what he got was beyond even his most ambitious expectations. An English translation that would forever bear his name and would outstrip all other versions for the next 400 years.
Let you know, we talked about Mary Stuart and all that yesterday. Well, today I was going to let you know about King James, because I had mentioned in that video that the King James, when I was younger, I thought King James wrote the Bible, but he didn't. The very first Bible, and I wrote all this down so I could tell you, so I would not get it wrong. It took me a lot of research years ago to learn all this, so I'm sharing it with you. Erasmus, the Greek, it was in Latin. It was the very first one translated in 1516, in the year 1516. And it was done by Erasmus of Rotterdam. That's in England, I think. Anyway, that was considered the most hunted book and most important book. After that book was printed, when people read that, that showed that money that was going to Rome, you know, for the Catholic priests. Now, I don't want to hear no arguing between Catholics on here, because I'm not going to debate nobody, but I'm just saying. Money quit flowing to the Catholics, because in that printing of that book, it was telling people that you don't have to go to a priest to ask for forgiveness, because when people could understand that book, they realized, you know, we've been doing penance and going in that little booth to talk to a priest, ask for forgiveness, when the entire time they could have done it talking to Christ. So that started up the Protestant movement, and the reason they're called Protestants is because they was in protest against the Catholics. So that's why they're called Protestants. They printed this book, and they had the Latin version and the Greek version on each page side by side, so they could see where the Catholic priest was getting it wrong. People could see that. But now, normal people, you know, still was having trouble understanding. But back then, religion was a big deal, and people went by what their pastor said. Well, you'd come up with these scholars that turned out to be pastors that knew that the Catholic Church was telling people wrong. They was getting wealthy. They had Michelangelo and all them in there painting them cathedrals and all this stuff, you know, doing mason work and stuff on the, you know, brickwork and stuff on their big churches and stuff. And the people was paying them. They thought that's how they got forgiveness. The Protestants was telling them that ain't true, you know. Anyway, so that's how you come up with the Erasmus. That's the first Bible that was translated. It was in 1516. Okay, then came the Coverdale Bible. And that was printed in 1534 now. It was written by William Tyndale, and he translated it into English. See, back then, a lot of people, like regular workers, you know, they just spoke their language, you know, they didn't know no different. This dude translated it where they could read it, where regular people could read it, not these high scholars, you know. And at that time, when he done all this, Rome was still in control, you know. Even though they had a few stragglers here and there, you know, but they was basically running it. Taxing people, getting their money, all that kind of thing. The Roman Catholic Church hunted for anybody that had that book, or anybody that claimed to be a Protestant. They took that, the Catholic priest took that as an assault on theirself, you know. It's assault on the Roman Catholic Church, that book, like it was what we would call like sacrilegious or something, you know. That's the way they looked at it. Tyndale was arrested and held under house arrest for 500 days for doing that book, and he didn't quite get it finished. I mean, you know, he got some of the books finished. There's, you know, in like the Bible's got chapters and stuff, but on October 6th, he was laid out and burned at the stake. So that would be a martyr. He didn't get to finish it, but his son, Miles Coverdale, finished it. And see, Tyndale knew, the one that was translating it for regular people like me and you, where we could read it, he knew all he had to do was win over the king. Now, this goes back to my story from yesterday. the king at that time was that big old fat king, King Henry VIII. And he knew by doing this, if he could win over the king, then the book would be free for everybody, you know, he'd be okay. Which, of course, you know, later he died, but still. The book eventually was freed for one reason. That's because Henry VIII broke away from the Roman Catholic Church because he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn. Now, Anne Boleyn is Queen Elizabeth's mother. Queen Elizabeth is the one that beheaded Mary Queen of Scots. Couldn't go back now. He couldn't get divorced because Catholics, you can't get divorced if you're a Catholic. It's not permitted. In order for him to be, because he was married, and in order for him to be with Anne Boleyn, he had to get divorced. So in order to do that, he had to release that Bible, and in that Bible, it was translated, you can get divorced. So it's what he done. So that Bible was free to circulate. Well, it circulated, you know. He had broke away from the Catholics. Now, let's see. Then it comes down to the Stephanus. He brings in the Geneva Bible. Now, the Geneva Bible, all that done, only difference in the Geneva Bible from Tyndale's Bible was that he put verses, the numbers in the verses, so where they just don't all read together, and he put the periods in, you know, where you can make a little bit more sense out of it. Because the Bible's been translated and translated and translated. It comes from Hebrew to Greek, Latin, you know, all the way through. Lord, look at my head, people. I'm sorry for my appearance. Anyway, and everything was fine. And then when King Henry died, or, you know, Henry VIII, when he died, he had a son. His son only lived to be like 9 years old, but during that time, while his son was growing up, the Bible was circulating, okay? His son was also Protestant, which made him Protestant when they broke away from the Catholics. Now, when his son died, his older half-sister, which was Queen Elizabeth's older sister, who was also known as Bloody Mary. And the reason she's known as Bloody Mary is because she killed 7,000 of her own people because they were Protestants instead of Catholics. She burned them alive. Burned them at the stake. Okay. When she died, her sister, which brings us up to the story I told yesterday, which is Queen Elizabeth. Let me back up. Bloody Mary was a strict Catholic, which I'm sure you understand that now, but she was trying to turn the country back Catholic. Well, Queen Elizabeth, so many Murrays in it. Queen Elizabeth was Protestant. So it was okay for her people to do their, you know, have their own religion. Let the Bible circulate, right? After Queen Elizabeth became queen, she wanted to win the people over to her side. So she had them come up with the Bishop's Bible. Now, the Bishop's Bible was written by pastors, you know. But that was just another reference, another book that has been printed from those books. Wind knock you down sometimes. Well, a group of men fled from England, and they ended up getting together and they wrote the Geneva Bible. And the Geneva Bible is the family Bible, and it was written in 1560. It was brought over by the Puritans on the Mayflower. That's what they ruled their life by, was that Bible. After Queen Elizabeth died, then King James became king and had 54 scholars, 54 men get together. And when they all got together, that's how they came up with the 1611 edition. The Bible has been translated so many times. Even up to the Bible we have today was translated to the New King James Version. It's supposed to be even more easier to read. But a lot can change when you change a word in a sentence. For example, you can say, "In my Father's house are many mansions," when it originally said, "In my Father's house are many dwellings." There's a difference between a dwelling and a mansion. See what I'm saying? A dwelling can be a cave somewhere over in the woods, you know, something like that. They put those words in there like mansion, that kind of thing, to appease King James, and it worked. But anyway, when those 54 scholars got together, they had all of these books from all the surrounding areas, you know, and they went through each book and all this stuff and decided what went in the Bible and what didn't. They have the canon, then you have books that's not in the canon. Those books, the reason they're called Apocrypha, because that word means hidden. Those are books that they did not want in the canon. Now, it's not part of our Bible, but one thing I found during reading the Bible, I was going through the Bible and it said, I came across a verse in there and it said Enoch prophesied. And I thought, well, who the crap is Enoch? You know, never heard that dude before, except up in Genesis, and that's just been in the list of names, you know. But anyway, I got to looking and I thought, well, that's back when I was baby Christian. I didn't know nothing back then, but I was learning, trying to learn. Anyway, I thought, well, I'll look in the Bible. So I thought, well, they maybe, it said, I went to the library and it said, see the book of Enoch. And I thought, okay. So I went back to the Bible, I was looking through the Bible, and I'm like, there ain't no book of Enoch. What the crap, you know? I was confused. That's how it got me on the trail to figure out that there was other books that's not included. Now, if those books that was hidden are not meant to be read, then why does it mention it in the Bible? See what I'm saying? Why does it say Enoch prophesied? Well, I want to know what Enoch said, okay? You know. Now, I'm not saying those books, you're supposed to base your life on those books or nothing. But those books can fill in some of the gaps. Like, the Apocrypha books tells you where, like, the Pharisees come from, the Sadducees, where they came from. You know, things that are kind of left out in our Bible. You know, and there's some cool stories in there. I did a video in the past, you have to check it out, of where I was talking about the books of Enoch and all that stuff. But you have to kind of judge it yourself, you know. I think everybody has to find their own way.